So let me just, I will only do one more of these videos at this session. You'll find I talk about the degree to which the Church of the Nazarene manual on several doctrines, but certainly on this one, you see on page 13 that I lay it side by side with that of the Church of England, or it says Anglican. Anglican is Church of England. It's also the Episcopalian Church here in America. So there you have, containeth all things necessary to salvation. This is also, by the way, essentially the statement of the Roman Catholic Church since the Second Vatican Council in the mid-1960s. So the Church of the Nazarenes in, I would say, some pretty heady company in sort of stipulating that, we'll say, like, the authoritative nature of the Bible has to do with its teachings regarding salvation, how we come into a saving relationship to God through Jesus Christ. Now, then I just kind of trace manual statements, because the Church of the Nazarene can change any one of its beliefs it used to be every 4 years. I think now it's every 5. I don't keep track of these things. They're called General Assemblies, and as a theologian who's always felt on the edge and kind of wanted to be there, I've made it a point of pride never to have shown my face at a General Assembly. Almost all my colleagues, well, no, a lot of my friends, a lot of preachers, Dr. Kelly is always at the General Assemblies. He can't believe I've never been to one. Hey, I'm now almost 70. I'm not going to break my record now. Point being, at these General Assemblies, there's a process whereby the church can actually amend a statement, which is kind of interesting. Like the Church of England, 39 articles of religion have not changed since the Church of England began. If you had changed it, you'd be admitting that you didn't have it right before. So, I mean, among other things. Same goes with the church that's kind of located between us, Nazarenes, and the Anglicans, the Church of England. The Church of England is the church that John Wesley and Charles Wesley grew up in. They were ordained by that. John Wesley was an Anglican priest all his life, but he also began this ministry that was not a church for a long time, the Methodists. And in fact, they first became a church over here in the New World after the Revolutionary War. And these now independent Americans didn't want any of those Church of England priests hanging around. So a lot of the Church of England priests packed up and sailed back home, which led to a crisis for a lot of Wesley's followers who were members of the Church of England. Wesley had never approved of American independence. They were probably happy to be Americans, but they didn't know what to do. They felt Wesleyan and loyal to Wesley, and they said, we need some people here to preach to us. We need ordained ministers to provide the sacraments for us, baptizing, Lord's Supper, burials, all that stuff. And so Wesley sort of began the church, the Methodist Church here in the New World. Probably went against the Church of England's own standards by ordaining people to lead the church in the United States. And in fact, his brother Charles took great exception at the way his brother John, kind of without breaking from the Church of England, really pushed it a lot. So anyway, you have Church of England, then you have the Methodists, and then the Church of the Nazarene. The Methodists were really one of the truly dominant denominations, along with Baptists, in here in North America in the 19th century, and certainly well into the 20th. But near the end of the 19th century, we'll say among the Methodists, there was a movement to try to get back to Wesley's more fundamental concerns. That's what this Phineas Brzee guy who started the Church of the Nazarene was trying to do in L.A. So we have both our manual statement lined up with the Anglican churches. Excuse me. And then on the next page, I think it is, I've laid out the 1905 manual article with the 1928 Church of the Nazarene manual article, which is pretty much what we still have today. Though there have been attempts by some groups to, at a General Assembly, lobby to have this thing changed. So far, it's survived. Those who want it changed would be those who think it's too loose, opens the door too much to, we'll say, liberal interpretations, for lack of a better word. And so, in any case, that was the 1928 where H. Orton Wiley, and I talk about him on that page, and the careful wording which he gave to this statement on the Scripture. Now, there's some nice American history here about fundamentalism, and the fundamentalists were against the modernists, and most Nazarenes were certainly fundamentalists early on. Wiley, H. Orton Wiley was a great Nazarene preacher, highly regarded. Oh my goodness, preacher, theologian, college president, but he was not a fundamentalist. By that, I mean he was not comfortable with the idea that the Bible is simply a collection of facts that are inerrant, and that whatever they talk about, they're without mistake regarding what the topic is, right? That could probably be massaged a little bit more, but that's kind of the idea. So, as I mentioned on 19, right above the 1928 manual statement, Wiley's own confessed purpose was to frame the article on Scripture, quote, so that there would be a little bit of elbow room in there. And I'm all in favor of elbow room myself. You see, yeah. Okay. And really, this article has been of great, great help to me. I go on to talk about some of the language in that article of faith. The word plenary. So there's a section starts on page 20 that's emphasizes the term plenary, and then I think a little bit down the road, there's some interesting stuff in there about how H. Orton Wiley differed with one of his theology colleagues at Pasadena College about whether the term plenary was a good one. And so that's all included. This is actually, I think, a really important section. It's longer than I realized. And then on page 25, I switched from plenary to the word inspiration. And notice the italics in both of these cases. We'll certainly pick up somewhere around here on Wednesday. I would encourage you to have read at least through, by Wednesday, probably at least through page 29, which is kind of where I've been talking up to. So, especially the stuff about plenary and inspiration. And we'll pick up there on Wednesday, and we're going to try to really zero in on why this is important for the natural sciences, which of course is what this course is about. And so much of what we've already said has hinged on the idea that there's much less of a conflict between the natural sciences and the Bible if we don't make the assumption that the Bible's purpose includes giving us historical / scientific information, information about like when the world began and how God created it. The fact of the matter is, Genesis doesn't really tell us how God created it, other than that God spoke. But that's hardly a scientific description. And in fact, nothing in Genesis 1 really qualifies as a scientific description. Now, does that mean that just any old scientific description goes? Well, that's where the rubber begins to meet the road as we try to think about, well, what notions of creation can this statement on Scripture sort of like make room for? And here's the last thing I'll say on that matter. And it's also in this in the second half of this monograph, but just by way of anticipation, there's a spot at which it's not in the Articles of Faith, so it's later on in the manual. I don't remember under what heading, but there's a statement about creation, and at least at one time it read this way. I think it might have changed since then, but this is still pretty good. That essentially it says we oppose any notion of a godless evolution. See, so not evolution like per se or necessarily, but a godless understanding of evolution. Well, of course we oppose that. If we're Christians, we oppose any interpretation of anything that's godless. So in some ways that goes without saying. But it's also then saying, and therefore we're also making room for the possibility, we'll just at least say possibility for now, of a godly interpretation or godly version of evolutionary theory. So we'll pick it up. I'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks all.